Philadelphia from the College of Education, Temple University, this is Profiles in Literature, featuring interviews with authors and illustrators prominent in American literature for children. The moderator for the series is Dr. Jaqueline N. Shachter, Associate Professor of Children's Literature with Temple University. Today's special guest is Elizabeth Borton de Treviño.
From picturesque provincial Cuernavaca, not too far from Mexico City, comes today's guest on Profiles in Literature, Mrs. Elizabeth Borton de Treviño. We very much appreciate your making that long trip to be with us.
I'm very happy to be here.
We're grateful to Temple University's Multilingual Merit Center for making your visit possible. Joining me in welcoming you is your good friend, Carolyn Field, Coordinator of Work with Children for the Free Library of Philadelphia.
Nice to see you again, Mrs. de Treviño.
Thank you.
In the audience are teachers, librarians, students, and friends who are very much interested in your books. I imagine you, Elizabeth, in your home where I met you in the summer of 1974. You were the gracious hostess to 20 of us on a study tour in children's literature, and we relaxed on that patio next to your swimming pool with a view of your spacious grounds.
You must come back.
I'm ready, I'm ready. We have a picture here of you in your very beautiful garden, and another photograph of you with your husband, about whom you've written so much. His name is?
Luis Treviño Gomez, and he's better looking than that picture.
You've enjoyed a number of years of married life.
More than 40.
Mm-hmm. And the product has been two very fine sons. Tell us about their professions and which of your books you identify with their careers.
My older son is named Luis Federico. He's a painter. He dedicates himself to his craft. He loves his art. And like all painters, he is either very well-to-do or he is poverty-stricken. My other son, Enrique, is a lawyer. He works with the government, and he also teaches at several of the university campuses around in and near Mexico City. Luis has influenced my writing about art on the book I wrote about El Greco, and more particularly Juan de Pareja. Enrique, my lawyer boy, helped me very much with my book Juarez, Man of Law.
Those are my favorites of your books. We'll look now at some of your juvenile works, the original ones, in their order of creation. A Carpet of Flowers, Nacar the White Deer, and I, Juan de Pareja, which won the Newbery Medal in 1966. Here is that Newbery Medal. I understand that the book will soon appear in a musical. Is that true?
Work has gone forward on a musical version of I, Juan de Pareja. Yes.
Oh, good luck. And here is one of several foreign editions of I, Juan de Pareja. This one is in Afrikaans, used in all places in South Africa.
Yes.
I hope it's going to be a little grain of sand there.
I hope so too.
Making a dent. Some of your other books are Casilda of the Rising Moon, Turi's Papa, Here is Mexico, Beyond the Gates of Hercules, and Juarez, Man of Law. Recently, Blaine Etheridge published a bilingual book, A Carpet of Flowers,
Yes.
Una Alfombra de Flores, with a Spanish translation prepared by Maria Ana Murillo Peralta. It's marvelous that 7 of these 9 books deal with the Spanish culture. Can you tell us why?
Well, firstly, I have always been deeply interested in it, and secondly, I feel now that our own country is becoming almost bilingual through the tremendous number of people of Hispanic origin in our country. And I personally think that it's a great thing to have education and many other cultural events in both languages. Whenever there is a confrontation of two cultures, each one is enriched by the other. And I think that we are going to experience in the near future a great surge of bilingual or Hispanic and English writers who will come up from this new ambiente, which is typical of our country.
When did this interest in Latin America begin, Mrs. de Treviño?
Well, it began long ago when I was a child. I was born in California, where there's still a strong influence of Spain and Mexico, and both my father and mother were native son and daughter as well. We had Mexican friends. Our family doctor was a Mexican. I studied Spanish all through high school and through college. And when I began working on the newspaper in Boston as a young woman, as a reporter, I was sent to interview many people who didn't know any English and whose French was difficult or unintelligible. And I got my first byline because I had an interview in Spanish.
And this was in Boston
In
that
Boston.
this happened? Oh. Well, then why did you go to Mexico? And
I was sent to Mexico by my paper to interview important personages in the cultural life of the country. Carlos Chavez in music, Diego Rivera in painting, Mariano Azuela in literature. And as I say, I married the first Mexican I set eyes on when I crossed the border, and I've been there ever since.
so that's why you stayed there.
I stayed.
What were the most difficult adjustments that you would have as an American living in Mexico?
You know, ever so many people ask me that. I didn't know I was adjusted until it took place, because I thought that was just the way marriages were, that you kind of fought things out until you got onto a level place, you know. But I had a tremendous ally and defender in my mother-in-law, who was an adorable person and very good to me. The funniest thing, I suppose, that happened was that in spite of all my years of studying Spanish, I was never taught the intimate, the second person, with the result that I always addressed my husband as Your Mercy. And this was considered to be very respectful on my part.
Well, that's probably why you got along well with him. Well, this answers one of the questions that we've had a great deal, and that is why you could receive the Newbery Medal when you were neither a resident nor a citizen of the United States, but you are a citizen of the United States.
I am a citizen of the United States, and I've always taken great pains to keep my citizenship in order and my passport valid.
Good.
Because, after all, I have two sons who should remember and appreciate their heritage through me, as well as their very rich heritage through their father.
How fine that you fulfilled the Newbery requirements for recognition of an excellent book, I, Juan de Pareja, which is set in Spain in the 17th century. Pareja was a Moorish slave who cleaned the brushes and helped the great painter Velázquez. The book speaks of Pareja's inner struggles to become an artist, because at that time slaves were not permitted to paint, and he had to paint in secrecy. Finally, Velázquez does give Pareja his freedom. Here is the portrait done by Velázquez of Juan de Pareja. When Pareja was younger, he might have looked very much like Temple student Henry Roy. Mr. Roy, with the direction of choreographer Eva Golson of the Temple University dance faculty, with tremendous talent, has done this dance interpretation of the book, I, Juan de Pareja.
Very beautiful, very expressive.
And of magnificent literature. Your book arouses interest in 3 paintings by Velázquez. First, the portrait of Juan de Pareja. Second, the only self-portrait of Velázquez, which is not as clear, but it's very significant because it shows the sign of knighthood, the cross of Santiago, on his doublet. Philip IV, the King of Spain, gave this honor to the great painter after his death, so Velázquez couldn't have put it on himself. Your book suggests with logic that the king and Pareja together did it, as we see on the back of the book jacket, designed by illustrator Enrico Arno. The self-portrait is only a small, modest part, rather dark, of a very famous Velázquez work, Las Meninas, or the children, the girls in the family of Philip IV. You presume that the third portrait, Lady with a Fan, was of the daughter of Velázquez, Francisca or Paquita. Mrs. Treviño, Elizabeth, do you think that your readers would appreciate if your publisher were to include prints of the Velázquez works and also those by Pareja in your book when they're mentioned?
Well, I'm sure people would love them because they very much enhance the story, but I have always attempted to keep down the prices of my books because with each new print you raise the price tremendously, and I would rather more people had access to my books than actually saw the pictures. But at the same time, children might become interested enough to look for reproductions of those paintings themselves. And I think anything which you do yourself in a sense of discovery is valuable.
Did you see any of the Pareja's paintings, his own paintings in the museums in
Yes,
Europe?
I did. There was one, when I was in Spain, there was one in the Museo del Prado. I learned that since then it has been sold to a collector. And there were other paintings by Pareja himself in private collections that I was not able to see. I saw reproductions of them occasionally in Spanish books of collections. And even the great portrait of Juan himself that Velázquez made, which was bought by the Metropolitan Museum, was in a private collection, as you know. And unfortunately, a great many of the great pieces of art of the world are still in private hands.
Yes, I'm afraid that's very true, even here in the United States. Just as writers converse with words, artists also converse with pictures. And what is the quotation, the famous Velázquez quotation that you found?
Well, there's only one that they are certain of. You know, painters are laconic. They talk through their work. They speak through their brushes. And the only word we have that we know for sure was said by Velázquez is the following: I would rather be first in painting something ugly than 20th in painting something beautiful. But you must immediately understand that, because all his painting transcends the subject matter. For example, he painted portraits of 2 of the little dwarfs of the court. And they were rather pitiful, small, deformed creatures. But something shines through, and they are moving, and they are very beautiful, because undoubtedly Velázquez, like very great painters, was a psychologist, whether he knew it or not. He saw what was inside as well as what was outside, and he knew how to paint it.
Beyond art, your Pareja book talks of human relations. What is the theme, Elizabeth, of I, Juan de Pareja?
The theme is the same in every book I have ever written. The theme is love. I feel that love is the motor that animates us all, It's the cure of everything ill. It's the rescue of the hurt and bewildered. And there are still enormous fields in which we all must learn to love. I personally feel this is why we are here on this earth. We're here to learn to love. And wherever I discover an example of it, I love to write about it. And certainly the marvelous relationship between Juan and Velázquez can only be described by that word love, although it was friendship between two men of different races. And throughout all my work, this is what I underline.
I think a theme is extremely important, but when you're doing a biography, what are the problems when you have few primary resources, such as with Juan de Pareja and Velázquez?
Well, I think that the number one thing is cultivating all you can of a feeling of empathy, of getting into the shoes and inside the skin of another person, feeling what he must have felt and seeing what he must have seen. This is one reason why I often write in first person, because it helps the reader to visualize himself inside another skin. And in the matter of painters, all the biographers, beyond a few dates that they may have command of, merely surmise things from a study of the paintings. And I think actually in any biography you can surmise something of the character and feelings of a person through his work, through what shows in what he did. And this is very true of painters.
Aren't some of the aspects of Juan de Pareja possibly autobiographical? For example, Juan detests when the deer are wounded for sport, and he's ashamed because he's not a vegetarian. This same problem occurs in your juvenile work, Beyond the Gates of Hercules, and in your two adult books, The Fourth Gift and The House on Bitterness Street. Are you perchance a vegetarian, or have you been in the past?
I am almost. I do occasionally eat some fish or a piece of chicken because I personally could never kill anything. And I also think that it's important in the world in which we live nowadays, when there is hunger in so many parts of the world. It seems to me very wrong to sacrifice many acres of grain to bring an animal to the point at which it provides food, when we could all be eating the grain. And then besides, I love animals and all living things, and I do not like ever to read about an endangered species. This hurts me. In fact, I would say that after love as theme number one in all my books, I would put compassion. Because people must, they have to open their hearts to much more compassion for every living creature and for ourselves and for each other.
That's true.
In your book, Turi's Papa, which I loved, which is the story of the director of the Institute for Violin Making in Cremona, you show considerable knowledge of music. What is your background in music?
Oh, I studied music also from my childhood.
Oh, you did?
And I am a violinist. I was for 6 years first violin with the Vivaldi Chamber Orchestra in Mexico City. I've done a lot of radio work, and I still do chamber music. Yes, I love music very much. And both my children do. My son Enrique, the lawyer, is a very fine cellist. My husband is a pianist.
Well, now you dedicated Wari's Man of the People to Enrique.
Yes.
How did he help you with the book? Did he influence you in selecting it as a book to
No,
write?
but he found me the books to study. He got me a very good bibliography in Spanish and directed my reading and directed my study.
Now this is the one that is married and has the 2 children.
Yes,
right.
he's married now. I nagged and carried on, had tantrums until he got married and provided me with some grandchildren. And I now have 2 beautiful grandchildren, little Danny and little Elizabeth, who is called Lisa.
Do you prefer writing for children or for adults? Doesn't it matter?
Well, I will tell you, I was studying music with Shandor Roth, the great viola player of the Lehner Quartet, when someone came to him and said, Maestro, what is your favorite of all the quartets of Beethoven, Mozart, Haydn, and so forth? He said, the one I am playing at the moment. And I feel this way too. The book I'm working on at the moment has me on fire, and that's my favorite for the moment.
Do you care to tell us anything about it, or is it a secret at the moment?
I am carrying a manuscript up to New York, which is a love story for adults, and it's called The Angelic Possession. Should be out next year, and I have a contract to do another novel, which will be a setting of Mexico City in the 17th century. And I have asked for and received a whole year to make my studies for it, because it'll take a lot of preparation.
What about the children? You're not going to leave them
Indeed, no,
alone?
I have an idea which I was telling my friends last night for a new story for children that I hope very much to be given a contract for, so that I can begin to work on it.
Why did you dedicate Juan de Pareja to your agent?
Well, she was always much, much more than an agent to me. She was a very dear and devoted friend, and a staunch supporter of everything I wanted to do. And Juan de Pareja had been offered twice before when nobody wanted to print it. And she was behind me all the time on insisting. And besides, I have dedicated other books to other members of my family. When Juan de Pareja received the Newbery, she sent me a magnificent telegram. It said, "Hooray, we have won the Newbery." I went downstairs and bought a chocolate bar and ate it. Now this was her celebration, because she was most strictly rationed.
I see. You know, Pareja is one of only 5 biographies to win the Newbery. Thank you very much. Elizabeth Borton de Treviño, journalist and famous author, has the satisfaction of seeing 7 of her books in translation. In addition to her juvenile writing, she has created 8 books for adults. Her articles and short stories appear in Reader's Digest, Collier's, Boy's Life, Saturday Evening Post, and Ladies' Home Journal. She writes about a variety of themes: her love for her family, for Mexico, and for music, because, as you know, she was a violinist. Her books about her family particularly show a very fine sense of humor. For example, she paraphrases, "That's the way the cookie crumbles," into "That's the way the tortilla tastes." We wish you a magnificent success in trying to weld together understanding between 2 cultures. And may you enjoy good health always.
Thank you. Thank you.